Greetings. In this video, we're going to let us move our player's ship to the left and to the right in two different ways. First with the keyboard and then with the mouse. Alright, so first, if you have your stapled packet, there's already a section about how to use the keyboard and how to use the mouse. So you can open that to remind yourself how this works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just give you a little example. So first, let's get it to recognize key presses at all. Inside draw, remember draw is running 30 times a second, there's a special built-in command called key pressed. If it highlights in blue, then you know you've got it. So this is true exactly when you are holding down a key. So whenever you're pressing a key down actively, this will be true. So now I can see what key is it. So I say if key equals the A key, for example. Then I'll system.out.println, you're hitting A. Let's test that much just to see if it recognizes when I hit the A key. And then afterwards, we'd actually want to put something in here like move ship left. So here I'm hitting the A key, and it says you're hitting A. And it won't say that unless you actually have selected this window, if this window is active. Alright, well, at least that shows that it recognizes I'm hitting the A key. So instead of printing something, what I want to do is I want to tell my player to move left. I want to say something like player.moveLeft. How much do I want it to move left by? Maybe 2 pixels. Okay, the problem is we don't have this method. So you're going to have to make it. Do the exact same things that you did in the last set of videos. Make a moveLeft method inside, what data type is this? Game object, so inside your game object. The input is how much you want to move left by. So all you're going to do is change your x coordinate by that much. So I've gone ahead and done that. So now let's run it. And when I hit the A key, my ship moves left. Not super fast. Maybe I want to move it a little faster, so I'll try 5. And we'll see how that feels. Well, that feels a little bit better. Alright. So, what I'd like you to do now is add another if statement, and if they're hitting the D key, move the player to the right. So I've made those changes. And so now when I hit A and D, it moves left and right. I'm noticing it's a little glitchy. Like when I switch direction, it doesn't always switch cleanly. So let's try and fix that. I'm going to go ahead and cut all the lines, starting with if key pressed, down to the closing brace there. So instead of doing all of this inside the draw loop, I'm going to make a method that's after the draw loop. So make sure that you find your way down to the closing brace for draw, and then go a couple more lines down. And it's going to be a new method, public void key pressed. This is a built-in method that runs whenever a key first gets pressed down. And let's paste our code in there. So, because this method runs whenever a key gets pressed down, we don't need to immediately ask, is a key being pressed down, because this method wouldn't be running if a key weren't pressed down. So we can go ahead and delete that if statement. So we're now only asking, is the key the A key or is the key the D key? Well, you could run it again right now, but if you do, you still see that kind of lagging problem. So here's what I'm going to do. Instead of having my player move its x coordinate by asking if the key's being pressed, I'm just going to watch it get pressed once, and if it is, I'm going to run my own set x speed method. So I'm going to set x, here it is, I've called it set x speed. So I'll set the x speed to -5, and if I hit D, I'll say set y speed to +5. So this method doesn't actually change the x coordinate of my player. It doesn't actually move him yet. It just changes what his own internal speed number says. And the player doesn't actually move until back up here in draw where we say update, because update is where we take our own x speed and change our x coordinate. So what I'm really saying here is, as soon as an A key gets pressed down, let's change what our x speed is, and this draw loop, which is happening all the time, it's going to go ahead and start moving my player. So let's test that. So that seems okay, but one thing you might be noticing is... Oh, I'm going down. Oh, because I said Y speed. Okay, let's try this again. So one thing you might be noticing is, on yours, this is working great going left and right, but I can't ever stop. And the reason why is because once I've set my X speed to 5, if I wanted to stop, I got to set my speed back to 0 again. So let's do this. I'll say public void key released. This is another method that runs whenever a key gets released. When a key gets released, I'll say if the key is the A key that was released, or if the key was the D key. So if I release either A or D, then I'll say player.setXspeed to 0. So in other words, when I press the key, depending on what key it is, I start moving. Then when I release the key, I'll tell my player to stop. So that looks like it's got the right kind of behavior that I want. Let's give it mouse control in 2 different ways. So I'm going to delete all this key stuff. And now what I'm going to do is, inside draw, I'm going to, right where I'm updating the player, right after I update the player, I'm going to say player.setXcoordinate, and I'm going to set the X coordinate to whatever the mouse's X coordinate is. So what this is going to do is, the player will just immediately track my mouse. There it is. This is kind of nice control. The only problem is when I go off the screen, it doesn't track my mouse anymore. In some ways, this makes for a really nice game because it gives me quick, agile control, and I could just be clicking and shooting. Let's do something a little bit different than that, just to show you what kind of variety is possible. So instead of just setting X to be where my mouse is, let's say that my ship is going to move towards the mouse. So I'll say if my player's X coordinate is smaller than mouse X, that must mean that my player is to the left of where the mouse is. So I'll say player.move right by 5. Otherwise, if my player's X coordinate is bigger than mouse X, then I'll say player.move left by 5. So I'm going to test, oops, I'm missing an if. Okay. So I'm going to test if I'm to the left of the mouse, move right. Otherwise, if I'm to the right of the mouse, move left. So now it moves towards my mouse, but it doesn't track my mouse exactly. The only problem here is, you see, when it hits my mouse, it jitters back and forth, because it's always either a little bit left or a little bit right. So maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something like this. So if I'm smaller than the mouse minus 6, then I'll move to the right. Or if I'm larger than the mouse plus 6, I'll move to the left. I chose 6 because that's going to create a little buffer zone. Here, watch to see. So right now I'm not moving at all because I'm not smaller than the mouse coordinate minus 6, but I'm also not bigger than the mouse coordinate plus 6. I'm like right in the middle there. So it really won't move until I hit that buffer zone. Alright, so I hope I've given you a lot of options for what type of control you would like your game to have. Come back next time and we'll talk about shooting bullets.